The next subject up is measurement. The 4A's has been very, very busy with the measurement task force. We're going to give you an update, and I'd like to introduce, first up, to get the update, is Rich Gagnon. Rich is the managing director at Initiative, and during the course of his career there has overseen the CPG, the financial, health, retail, technology, and travel sectors. Certainly someone who has seen a broad spectrum of categories. Named Adweek's Media All-Star and having won awards for the largest multicultural campaign in the US for the United States Census. Please welcome Rich Gagnon to take us through measurement.
How do you measure a year in the life? How about love?
Thank you. That's the music intro. So for reference, we operate the coveted back panel position of your agenda, so the last presentations of the day. So while Rent may have measured a year in love, viewability was the dominant metric for us. The Viewability Initiative really brought together all stakeholders together to get a new accountability standard in digital media. Now, there were a lot of headlines and discussions around viewability, from how pixels render to determining the right exposure time. And while there is still work to be done, we now have a currency for transacting in digital media, which is a great achievement in the last year. Viewability and 3MS are key reasons for the creation of the Cross-Media Measurement Task Group. Our mission is to elevate the importance of media measurement by being an advisor and an educator on topics like 3MS, push for the right standards in terms of exposure and engagement, and celebrate the best and next practices to take our industry forward. And you're going to get a taste of that in a few minutes on stage with ESPN. Now, we've given digital media a lot of attention, and deservedly so, but this is not the only area of our focus. We recently published a white paper on the need to evolve diary panel measurement. With all the technology advancements, we still rely on diaries to measure over $7 billion in local TV media. Now, there are lots of accuracy and reporting gaps with diary panels. We're encouraged that Nielsen has announced some improvements, and we know that the cost to evolve here is significant. But because of the gaps and the significance of this spending, we really have to make this an area of focus in 2015. In January, our task force partnered with the MRC to lead a webinar on the different levels of measurement around what we call the 3E's in measurement, a simple framework for evaluation. Exposure is about validating that humans have the opportunity to see or hear our message. Pretty simple. Exposure standards set our trading currencies and improve our ability to make comparative evaluations across media. Viewability and diary panels fall into this category. Engagement is about understanding if media exposure delivers a deeper level of involvement, either perceptual or through physical interaction. And effect is the ultimate measure of how media is accountable to drive ROI results. Now, I know engagement is among the most overused words in our industry, so for it to mean something, we have to put some substance around it. First, better exposure metrics will help increase the accuracy of digital metrics like click-through rates. If you have bad upfront data, you're going to have bad engagement data later in the process. Having one engagement metric is probably unrealistic because there are just so many ways for us to communicate a brand message. From trying to measure real-time cultural engagement, like Arby's tweeting Pharrell during the Grammys, to the wide variety of content integrations that we see, like Blake Griffin jumping over a Kia during the NBA All-Star Game, or measuring the power of social influence, like Zed's personal story for tobacco prevention, a campaign that we worked on. Could we run that video, please?
I want to give the best to my fans. Every single show has to be the best show I've ever done, and that's impossible if you don't take care of yourself. What I would be sacrificing by smoking is my health and potentially not being able to do what I love, which is making music. I want to do what I love the most, and I don't want anything to take away from that.
So measuring the engagement value for all these types of platforms will require new levels of collaboration. This means clients and agencies working with data providers, researchers partnering with publishers, and the advertising industry working with the academic world, all trying to drive more innovation and accountability across the 3 E's of exposure, engagement, and effect. So as we look ahead, here are a few observations that we see. First, fraud cannot be tolerated. This is an essential standard, and all of us have skin in the game to protect our industry. Next, we are operating in real time, not just ad time. Speed to market is essential, and we still have a ways to go to automate data. Third, innovation will require the combination of architects who can set a measurement vision, powered by analysts who can evaluate all the data that is accessible to us. And for data to matter, it must be humanized so we can really understand how consumers are interacting with content across all the different media platforms. All of this will fuel a new era of active measurement to better understand human behavior and improve our ability to know which channels work best and drive the greatest ROI. And for some inspiration on a very human level, I am thrilled to introduce Artie Bulgrin, who's director of the ESPN lab right here in Austin. Artie has led a number of innovative research projects and will share some new research for the first time here on stage on cross-screen video advertising effectiveness. So everyone, Artie Bulgrin.
Thank you very much, Rich. And when I'm not managing the ESPN lab here in Austin, I am in New York running a research department. Anyway, thanks again, Rich, and thank you, everybody. It's great to be here. Video. We've heard a lot about it today. It's everywhere, consumed on many different platforms, in many different ways. We've got live linear, we've got on-demand long form, short form, etc. But is it all the same? And why should advertisers invest in one screen versus another? Or should they invest in all screens? Better yet, how can they leverage screens together to create effects that are greater than the individual parts? Through a combination of field work and lab-based research done right up the road here in Austin, we endeavored to value video in its various forms across ESPN. But first, let me give you a little bit of background about ESPN's audience and our historical ad performance. First, from Project Blueprint, which measures cross-platform audiences, we know the total reach of our TV and digital audiences, and we can also identify the important incremental reach of our digital audience over television, 28% as of last spring. We also know the distribution of our video screens in reaching sports fans. We know that 41% are using multiple ESPN screens, and this is a multi-platform number that's been increasing over time. Now, this change in fan behavior in a few short years is significant, but what does that mean for advertiser communications? Is ad effectiveness changing along with the changes in audience behavior? Now, with ESPN's continuous longitudinal tracking of our 24 biggest advertisers in 5 different categories, we can actually document the effects of changing behavior to platform ad effectiveness over time. What you're seeing here is our individual video platforms plotted on this map based on the speed to which that they can generate ad awareness based on one exposure. That's the vertical axis. And then horizontally, what is the maximum potential of each one of those platforms? And what we see here is that from 2013 to 2014, clearly television has remained the greatest contributor to awareness, while digital video potential actually has been rising. So if effectiveness is changing, then we need to understand it at a more granular level. So we put the screens into a controlled environment in the ESPN lab to get a deeper understanding of video impact across television, over-the-top, PC, and mobile. And we had 2 fundamental questions in mind here. Are all screens equally viable? And what are the nuances? So the experimental conditions of the test included 8 different campaigns which had limited or local schedules to minimize noise and ensure minimal awareness. And for each campaign, we tested 15 and 30-second units of the same creative and exposed respondents to ads in these 4 prominently occurring ESPN video scenarios: linear television, linear content, and over-the-top, which is our Watch ESPN platform, and then pre-rolls ahead of clips on PC and pre-rolls ahead of clips on mobile. Here are some of the results from this study. First, attitudinally, we see virtually no difference in engagement and enjoyment with ESPN across these platforms. In fact, the levels based on a 7-point scale were pretty high. telling us that live quality content from a trusted brand translates across platforms. On PC and in the mobile app, the immediate relevance of short-form clips and the power of choice lead to slightly higher reported consumer enjoyment and engagement than TV and over-the-top. In terms of ad performance, even after just one ad exposure, video ads on all platforms generated high levels of ad performance, and in this case, about brand recognition. And here you can see actually that pre-roll ads created slightly higher levels of recall. The same trend can be seen for purchase intent after just one exposure. Now, with regard to commercial length, the question is, can both 15s and 30s be used interchangeably across platforms? The industry we know prefers 30s, and we found that actually from memory effects, a 30 is actually more powerful on all these screens. For purchase intention, 15s and 30s performed equally as well. So as I mentioned earlier, a few slides ago, in our ongoing tracking, we've observed the rising potential of our digital video platforms over the past 2 years, and that increased impact is now confirmed based on these lab results. All screens are viable. What we've learned also is that TV's reach and shared experience make it a powerful community driver. Awareness, word of mouth, and social activity are driven mostly by television advertising, but digital screens are in fact more personal, with a more deliberate orientation and quest, oftentimes held in the palm of our hands with earbuds. Content is chosen very specifically, resulting in a different kind of engagement. In the case of live sports and breaking news, it's a heightened sense of passion and interest. So digital can expand on the foundation of television's brand building and make it more direct and more personal. Now, if we go back to our tracking data, what can we find in terms of the cumulative effects that we see in video advertising as it's delivered in a cross-screen environment? So again, based on a very large data set over a couple of years across our largest advertisers, we see that there are incremental effects of exposure on multiple video platforms. Combined with TV, digital video exposure increases awareness and word of mouth, but most significantly impacts purchase intent at the lower end of the funnel, an increase of 160% over TV alone. As more evidence, here's an actual case study that validates what we've learned. And many thanks here to our friends at Mindshare for allowing us to share this. Dove Men Plus Care advertised with ESPN in January of last year, all on television. In March, their budget increased, and they split their video execution fairly evenly between TV and digital platforms. And they also shifted their overall campaign messaging, their overall generic campaign messaging with a sports theme. Here's what happened. By merging video platforms and contextualizing their brand with ESPN's environment, there was a lift in ad awareness among ESPN users, which we see there on the left-hand side, a lift of 11%. But an even greater lift occurred in purchase intent, a phenomenon that we saw in our aggregate insights and also what the lab revealed in our study. TV created a shared connection among fans, and digital platforms connected advertising one-on-one with each exposure. So reaching consumers in a quality environment, making deep impressions across platforms, and employing great advertising does in fact impact the bottom line. Together, a diversity of screens with the right content is a force for advertising. TV creates connections with consumers as a community, especially in sports, and digital enables one-on-one impact. TV is the biggest contributor to ad awareness, but our observations across time show that the potential for digital video is increasing. In fact, pre-roll ads associated with highlight clips produce some of the strongest effects on KPIs that we've seen. And both 15s and 30s are viable unit lengths that are useful across all video platforms. So here are my key takeaways from all of this. Employing a diversity of screens across engaging quality content creates impact. Digital video impressions combined with TV impressions drive KPIs, especially purchase intent. And as advertisers continue expanding screens in the mix, attention should turn to messaging by platform to truly unleash the full cumulative value of video impressions. And when it comes to an ESPN impression, we're very confident about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Artie. And Artie's going to stay here to join us for the last piece of the measurement dialogue. We're going to have a panel up next, which Artie will be a part of. The panel will discuss the areas of innovation in measurement and the application of insights coming out of all these new measurement tools. I'd like to introduce Kate Sirkin EVP and Global Research Director at Starcom MediaVest Group. Kate is responsible for emerging media trends, data support, proprietary studies, and is the voice of critical industry issues for Starcom Media Group. Kate will introduce the panel. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Welcome to our panel this afternoon. It's all about collaboration and innovation. I'm going to introduce the panel first, then start the discussion. So we'll start with Duncan McCall, the CEO and co-founder of PlaceIQ, a company that's at the intersection of advertising, location, and big data. This happens via the analysis of location data for the mobile phone. By collaborating with Rentrak, one of our other panel members today, PlaceIQ was the first to use mobile to measure the ROI of TV advertising. One of the outcomes of their work together was the ability to match TV viewership data with real-world consumer behavior. They also collaborate well with SMG to introduce our SMG Maps, which is a platform we use to, use location data as insights for media planning, activation, and measurement. Welcome, Duncan. Then we have Artie Bulgrin down at the end, who I guess needs no introduction to this audience. He's the consummate collaborator and innovator. As this city of music knows well, you need to collaborate to produce music. And Artie's been in a rock band since 1975 and knows there's lots of give and take in collaboration to make great music. On the business side, he brought together both Arbitron and comScore to develop Project Blueprint. That's no small task either, a game changer for the industry, and demonstrated what can be done with the right partners to innovate and deliver what the industry needs. We have Chris Wilson in the middle. From Rentrak, he's built a reputation within the research industry as both an innovator and a collaborator too, by working daily to create television's measurement products of the future. His role is President of National Television at Rentrak, and his mission is to further develop the development of new products and services to measure TV across platforms. Then we have Ann Hunter, the SVP of Global Marketing Strategy at comScore. She regularly collaborates with the sales and research bodies of our industry to make sure that the comScore products deliver for both sides of that equation. comScore is a collaborator and innovator in the digital measurement space, as we heard from ESPN with their blueprint work with Arbitron, and work very closely with many advertisers here today on ad measurement solutions. And then we have Jason Sobel, next to Artie, the Vice President of Engineering at Quantifind, where he works with his team to implement reliable and beautiful products for Quantifind's clients. It's the first time I've seen beautiful as a descriptor of what somebody does, but I'm pleased to hear it. Quantifind, for those who don't know, is a social data and analytics company seeking to use social data to increase brand marketing ROI by understanding what are the fundamental drivers of that ROI. It's pretty cool stuff. They digest the conversations and then use smart, scalable analytics to understand how and why those conversations drive consumer actions relative to brand purchase. Jason's an engineer, and we're pleased to have him on the panel. He was recently at Facebook and did a lot of work as an engineer, a manager, and director working on the infrastructure there, helping to scale the site from 20 million monthly active users to over 1 billion. So our panel today is made up of a content provider with ESPN across all screens and print and radio, technology that measures location, technology that measures conversations, technology that measures TV viewing, and technology that measures PC and mobile behaviors. So you'll notice not one traditional research company in that mix, but a whole host of new ad tech capabilities mixed in with a company that needs the measurement to be accurate as they measure across all of those different screens. So that's exciting, but the most exciting thing, I think, is that these are smart, collaborative people, and none of these individuals could measure everything alone. But together they can bring innovation that delivers against our collective and individual ongoing and one-off needs. They've demonstrated in the past their willingness and ability to partner with many of you in the audience today, and most certainly with Starcom MediaVest Group and our clients. The conversation today is around how did some of those collaborations start? What was the most difficult part, and what can we learn from that? And how should we think about them in the future and their impact on our business? So let's get right to it. I'm going to start with Chris. Rentrak's done a lot of great work in the measurement of TV. I love Bruce Gerlich's phrase, massive passive. I wish I'd thought of that one, but it's a great one. And I think it really is what you do. You have done a lot of work trying to free that data and allow it to be used across multiple parts of the industry. Can you talk a bit about how that happened, how agencies and analytics companies are using the data, and some of the challenges there?
Yeah, I mean, Rentrak is the planning currency, analytic currency for most of the agency marketplace at this point. As Kate said, it's massive and passive. It's about 50 million return path devices, which allows us to do some really interesting things because, at the foundation of what we do is a live and time-shifted TV rating service, which ties it back to the way agencies have traditionally worked. But the reality is because the size of the amount of information that we manage and have available, it can start to behave more like we can start to bring digital applications into TV. So what does that mean? That means you have the ability to measure 250 or 300 networks, which is exponentially more than it's ever been available. It allows you to take consumer information and match it up in a privacy-compliant fashion. So now you can go beyond age, sex, and start to look at who an advertiser's best customers are. So from a planning perspective, it opens up all kinds of new opportunities. In addition to that, because targeting is such a big part of what's going on, you can start to look at that across all touch points. So it isn't just about traditional contextual TV now. You have the ability to use those same targets to do programmatic buying or audience-based buying to supplement a contextual buy. You have the ability to use that same sort of targeting mechanism that we have available in addressable advertising or dynamic ad insertion for VOD or online video, and understand the duplication between all of those things so you can begin to really start to manage how you communicate with an advertiser's customers. What we've really done is started to bring all of those components together so that our agency customers can really begin to measure the effectiveness of the campaign on the back end. So what was the effect of that on actual sales lift or attribution type measurements? Marketing mix modeling becomes possible, leveraging a rating service. So it really has expanded the depth of application and analytics that can then be actioned back to a TV rating service. I think probably one of the most interesting components of it is it really opens up whole new levels of cross-platform measurement. So, with this kind of level of depth and granularity and stability of data, there's all kinds of new possibilities that exist that never did before. And I think our agency customers recognize that and are really taking advantage of that to create TV decisioning tools on top of a television rating service.
That's great, thank you. Duncan, can you talk about the work that PlaceIQ has done to create new metrics that demonstrate how advertising actually works and changes consumer behavior? I think that's going to be interesting for the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So you think about this idea of location in this space and location as it pertains to advertising. There's a bit of context. I think people traditionally think of this idea of location and advertising being maybe proximity and geofencing. And for us, location has always been a horizontal enabler. And if you think of this idea of location being a context that everybody in this room is bound to, right? Turns out that people, as well as data, are bound to location because it's omnipresent force. So if you think of location as an organizing structure, and then you think of this new world of 76% of this country's addressable population carrying smartphones, many of them opting in to share information with those devices, location being a key one, you suddenly have this world that is essentially a location and context aware with this sensor network on top of it, where you can do some really interesting things. And one of the things that we built, and we built it sort of in collaboration initially with SMG, was this idea of using location as an attribution mechanism. So you think of the idea of QSR, casual dining, hospitality, automotive dealerships, retail, whereby the physical location itself obviously has a really strong signal in terms of you are now a customer of this product. If you go into a McDonald's, you are a customer. You're unlikely to be window shopping. So suddenly we realized, there's an opportunity, and this was about 3 years ago, to create this metric that could essentially say, of all the exposures, we expose people to advertising, we have this common currency of a consumer identifier, and we can now anonymously connect this to a mobile device that moves through the world. we can see how many people have been exposed to advertising, end up going to a car dealership, end up going to a particular location. And then we actually thought, well, we can take this one step further. It can go beyond mobile. We can even hook it into television. So, for example, we've worked with Rentrak to be able to actually connect television to mobile devices and therefore location-based attribution. How many people saw my advertisement for a retail store and ended up going to that retailer? That's something we've actually done. There's a case study on our website. So you think about this idea of, the world we live in now, this hyper-connected digital world whereby we're location aware with sensors, moving around this world. You can now start to think of those sensors as being this really powerful attribution mechanism to understand, did somebody go to a location? And that can be hooked back into not just digital media, but a whole host of different sort of media exposures. And that's been really powerful.
I think the idea that most of this measurement is passive is really powerful. I'd love Jason to talk about it's not actually passive data, but it's naturally occurring behavior and conversations that he's using to try and drive insight.
Yeah, I'd love to. So what we're trying to do at Quantifind is unlock the insight and measurement that exists in everything your customers are saying. So we have all these amazing platforms right now where customers are talking online about your brands and your products every day. And there's a lot of tools out there to help you understand what's being said. What we're trying to do at Quantifind is layer in how does that tie to your actual outcomes? To, again, the previous panel was speaking about, business outcomes, and that's exactly what we're focused on at Quantifind. So instead of just, pointing out what your customers are saying, we're building statistical models that tie that conversation to predictors of whatever your KPI is. For most of our customers, and some of you are here today, that's revenue. You want to understand for everything your customers are saying about you, how does that actually predict revenue? And what that allows us to do is then give you insight into who is your customer, how does that change over time, and how do their topics of conversation affect revenue, and how does that change over time? And in cases where we have access to financial data for your competitors as well, through some of the scalable sources out there, we can give you that insight across your whole category. So again, it's unlocking the power of data that's already out there in new ways, both for kind of strategic insight and also even measurement of campaigns or sponsorships. And again, we're also Rentrak data users, so we line that up against TV. We also can line that up against digital. So trying again to really think about, from your perspective, what are the metrics you care about the most, and how can we give you insight into those using data that's out there and widely available, but perhaps not unlocked quite yet.
So I'd like to ask Anne about the work that comScore's done to connect all the pieces they pulled together for Project Blueprint. comScore started as a digital panel, but obviously you needed lots more different partners and innovations to make that project real.
Absolutely. The goal for us is to be able to take digital data that we have in terms of ad exposure and content consumption on a PC, on tablets and mobile, and be able to marry that into a single view of a consumer across multiple platforms, including over-the-top television and linear traditional television. And we've been really fortunate to work with organizations like SIM and great partners like ESPN in pulling together a view of media that actually looks at 5 different screens and is able to tell what consumers are doing on each individual, but also across them. And right now, we're in the process of rolling out a product that is going to allow that data to then be available to the market overall, so that anyone can access their consumer journey across those screens, as well as understanding content. So you can go in as an agency and understand, should I plan for putting an ad on The Walking Dead and buying ads in Snapchat and buying ads on the Onion website, and what's the overall reach that's going to give me, and what's the duplication across those different pieces of my buy? Ultimately, that's what we need to do, is to look at media in terms of consumers and their entire media journey, as opposed to all of the silos that we're looking at today. To do that, we've had to take our digital expertise and then marry that with some best of breed traditional media data sets. And one of the things that we are seeing is that when companies are trying to do things like this, one of the things we're noticing, and we've heard about it earlier today, is that they are taking digital data and they're not accounting for some of the uniqueness of digital. So if you would not allow a toaster sitting on a couch to count in your television ratings, you should not allow a robot to count in your digital ratings. The only way to get true apples to apples, unified measurement is to really do digital on a human-based measurement and then combine it together with traditional media. And we're seeing a lot of times that there's not that cleansing in digital happening before these mergers, and funky outcomes in terms of market mix models. Just that digital expertise in building the unified system has been really important for our clients.
I think that's important to note that. Excuse me, it's only through working with the industry and looking at the data that you really start to see the differences in human versus non-human traffic. I think Artie, as the main user of all of this data that these companies are providing, how does it change your business? Obviously, we've seen humongous changes in human behavior over the last few years, and ESPN, as a media content owner, displays that content in many, many different places. So how have the learnings that you've got from the research that you've done changed your business, both from a content production standpoint and an ad sales standpoint?
Well, I mean, we're kind of an outlier in that we are so big in sports, and of course, sports is virtually always consumed live. Even when you talk about the clips that I talked about before, 80% of the clips that are served up are consumed, within 48 hours. So there's a sense of urgency to everything. The other thing about ESPN is that I like to say that we're the quintessential cross-platform media company. And our growth is not just based on growing television ratings or digital audiences. It's about growing that cross-platform audience. And I showed a slide before from Project Blueprint from May of last year showing that when you look at the combination, the net audience, the unduplicated reach across our TV and digital audiences, we now know how many multi-platform users are out there. And the bottom line is that if we can continue to grow that audience, we will grow engagement across all platforms. That then translates in powerful insights that we can take the ad sales community, to take the UK to demonstrate why that's important, this level of engagement across our screens. And I think, we're in a unique position to do that in terms of delivering that type of experience and that sort of, premium ad environment, not across, just one platform, but multiple platforms. It's the same brand, it's the same genre, and we're speaking to the same audience with the same voice. But we need good data to demonstrate that value. And it's been a struggle for a while, and I think we're in a great time right now where, companies like these are actually, leveraging the power of digital, leveraging the power of, let's say, set-top box analytics to get us the granularity that we need, right, to tell the story in a way that's insightful and impactful.
Right. I think we're in an and world. It's not an or world. And I think only by leveraging everybody, we're all going to be more insightful and help our clients better. So I've got some questions now for the whole panel. I'm going to start with Chris on this one because it's been in the news this week, but I'll give my perspective on it first. And the question is, how do you balance the act of creating new product to innovate with market needs and then the role of the MRC to validate and accredit that? And I'll start with the SMG perspective on that. We support and believe that the work that the MRC does is incredibly important. It's driven more transparency for our industry in understanding how measurement works in a challenging time that we're in. But I don't think it can stop innovation. And so, if I lay that down first, I'd love your thoughts on the news this week and then everybody else's.
So, no, we agree. The MRC is really important. I mean, personally, we're committed to that process. It's really helped us. We believe in continually to improve our services, and they're a great guidepost for that. One of the things that I think is important is it is also about making the best decisions you can for your clients and customers. And a big part about understanding how those tools work are the results that they get. And we're in a world today where you can measure those results. So I know the decisions I made yesterday delivered these results to my customer. Therefore, I'm comfortable with the tools that I'm using to make those decisions and execute those programs. We've seen, and Duncan will attest to this. We've seen how these tools can work together on, let's say, mobile and television. We've used mobile attribution to show, in certain cases, 400% lift in certain case studies where people were exposed to the ad versus people that weren't exposed to the ad, both of which were shoppers. So we know the effect of television. We can measure that. So I think the MRC plays an important role. But I think it's also important to continue to push the marketplace forward and to use the MRC to help us all continuously improve our services.
Yeah, that's a good response. Anne, do you want to comment from comScore's perspective?
It's very similar. I mean, we support the MRC, and we are continuously having products accredited through that process. But the pace of innovation is going to be much faster than the pace of standards.
Right.
And they have to accredit to standards. So there's always going to be that catch-up period between the next thing that we can do and then our ability to agree as a industry on the best way to do it and then go back and accredit. So it's sort of, like checking to make sure that everything is set as opposed to leading where the innovation is going to come. And it's the right thing to do to make sure that we don't leave parts behind, but it is not the guide for how we go forward.
Right. Certainly from SMG's perspective, the transparency that the MRC brings and these companies share in terms of the methodology is, to me, what's critically important. And then we can make the decisions we make based on that knowledge. We support everybody for the effort. And I know it's a huge effort to go through that process. And I think that's the most important thing versus the final result. It's the knowledge and the insight that we've gained through that process that's important. Next question, and really for everybody, but we'll start with Artie at the end. What companies in general, and potentially in this audience, would you like to work with? Whose data would you like to have available?
I would like everybody.
What's next? Yeah.
Yeah, we all want all the data.
Certainly our best clients. I mean, one company that comes to mind here that's not on the panel here that's doing great things, I think, is a company called Reality Mine. And we've heard a lot of, sort of similar innovation in this room, but Reality Mine is a company that took the concept of IPA touchpoints from Britain, brought it over here to the US, took it to a next level, and basically leveraging the power of mobile to combine both active and passive measures to not only understand the media that people are using, but under what circumstances, under what moods, where they are. And I think, we've got the power to gather this type of data now, whether it's Reality Mine or somebody else. But I think it's that type of technology that is going to sort of guide the business of media and advertising in the future. Very powerful.
That's great to hear. We launched last week a partnership with the Reality Mine to launch that service in 20 markets around the world. Starting in Russia and Mexico now, and our next market is Saudi Arabia. So I'm excited to understand understanding insight. We're going to get back from that soon. Jason?
Yeah. So I think one of the things we're excited about at Quantifind is just taking in as much data as we can. Like I said earlier, we want everything. Because kind of the core value and we see in what we deliver is that we identify the signals that actually drive the metrics you care about. So what we find with a lot of our clients, and I think this is a pretty kind of common theme around big data these days, is having a lot of data can be overwhelming. You have to try to know what questions to ask and how to interpret the results you're getting back. And framing that in terms of a business objective can be really hard. Where what our system tries to do is, by again overlaying all the data you have with the metric you care about, we actually identify the patterns that drive that metric. So for us, the key source that we're using right now, again, is conversation, because that gives us the ability to derive these really rich insights from what your customers are telling you. But we would love to get access to more of the data that you brands have internally about your customers. So what are they saying to you in the channels that we don't have exposure to? Or what else do you think matters to your business? Like one of our customers wanted us to look at the price of oil, and how did that relate to their financial outcomes? And so, we tried to look at that right alongside all of the other conversation data we have and came up with some really interesting results. So when we engage with our clients, that's actually one of our first questions is, what do you think drives your business? What do you have questions about? And how can we take all that in and use our algorithms to try to give you actual insight that you can act on? So we'll take it all.
Okay, we've only got 1 minute left, so I'm going to ask Duncan for his thoughts on that one.
Yeah, so I think one of the data sets that we're really interested now, we're getting our hands into deeply is basically CRM data, right? So you think of this industry where you've got this incredible asset of CRM data. You've got all of the interactions with your customers, their likes, their dislikes, their complaints, the products they own. And typically marketing has been often, especially digital marketing, siloed away from that. And now finally you see you've got the DMP, which is the sort of digital record of truth. And of course, CRMs and DMPs are starting to merge. And now suddenly, finally, we're now getting to hook in our data and the things we do into CRM and into DMP. So you're building that true unified view of a user, and you're now being able to message to them based upon their history, their likes, their dislikes, their interactions across these other mediums, and plan and obviously measure for that. And to me, that really is amazingly encouraging to start to see this, this long dream of basically one-to-one marketing, whereby you would have a record of a customer and you would communicate to them on a one-to-one basis. And then suddenly we had all these silos. Well, now we've got this horizontal sort of unified view of a user, and the CRM is no longer one piece, it's horizontal across that. And that's the stuff that we just think is tremendously exciting, and I think is great for consumers and great for advertisers and great for vendors as well.
Right, I think it's just around the corner, so we're excited about it too. So I'd like to thank all the panel members for their insights and transparency with you this afternoon, and thank you.
And thank you, Kate, for moderating.